right, next up, Standards and Assessment Committee. Before we get started, I'd like to set the stage. Deputy Norman, can you show up? I know you've created, you and staff have created an awesome document to arrange things. I also would like you to put up the standards approval process so that we're all operating on the same process. Is that available?
Yes.
Thank
Would you
you.
like for us to put the review process first? And for
I
me to-
would,
Okay,
I
so
would.
let's put up-
There's been plenty of questions, constituent, member-wise. We've switched the standards process. I want to take this opportunity for the process to become clear on the record.
Yes, okay, I can go ahead and speak to that. Patty Norman, Deputy Superintendent of Student Achievement. In speaking to the standards reviews process for English Language Arts, it started in July of 2020, which was when the review was triggered. If we go through the process that you can see on the board right now, and it's also in your board backups, it is a, it is a 13-step process, but we also need to consider that step 12 has an A or a B path. When we were in the last March board meeting, we were doing step 11, which is when the Standards and Assessment Committee was reviewing and determining a path. What that means is on step 10, the full board had opportunity to provide feedback in a 30-day window. That feedback is then sent to a writing committee for them to determine whether or not it was age appropriate, whether it had vertical and horizontal alignment, and whether, other conditions that might be within there. And so the writing committee had a chance and an opportunity to be able to say, yes, we'll take that feedback into consideration and we will change it, or no. That does not mean at any time that this board can't change that feedback, that you can still go in and have another amendment that goes on that. So the determination from last time was March, and now we're just on path 1A or B. We're on path A, and that is final draft review and approval by the full board in the regular board meeting, and that's what's happening in today's meeting. And then you'll get another one after approval, which will be the implementation plan.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to, hold on next. Now I'd like to turn to Committee Chair Booth for your committee report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hart. So we had a very long meeting, and 11.123.1234567 we were not able to complete, and so there's no motion for the board. We were concerned that we might not have enough to do tomorrow in the committee meeting, so we've moved those things forward so that we can have something to do tomorrow. Just kidding. So then we move on to 12, and we're going to come up to number 2, 12.2, which is, as Dr. Norman indicated, path A of the step that we're on right now. And in path A, it was the recommendation of the committee that the board approve the P through 12 English Language Arts standards during the April 2023 full board meeting. So here we are.
Excellent. Do you have a motion for us?
I move that the board approve the P12 English Language Arts standards as they have been presented.
Do we have a second? Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you. All right. Next, we have comments to the motion. Natalie?
Yes.
Member Klein?
Yes, I move to amend. We can have motion number 1 brought forward.
Okay, and can we take a minute and explain the document?
Sure, Patty.
Yeah.
Would you mind?
Yes, again, Patty Norman. I'm going to describe this spreadsheet for everyone who hasn't had a chance to really dive deep into it. It is a compilation of lots of effort from folks, from board members who were looking at it in different ways. It's always nice to have new eyes on it, from staff adding in some things, and then really looking at a way forward so that it's easier for board members to be able to batch amendments, which is one of the ways that Board Member Klein has put some of these amendments forward, is to batch them so that they're not repeated over and over again, and then to be able to see what is in there, what's missing, what's deleted, and what's inserted. And so as we're going through this, if you look at column A, that would be a column, specifically this time, those are Board Member Klein's amendments. And so if you look down it would say a motion 1 so that you can follow along, and that's a motion that would be brought to the table. So A is the board member that brought it forward. B is the standard, and if we remember in our English language arts, we have 3 strands. We have listening and speaking and listening, we have writing, and we have reading, and under each one of those strands, we have the standards. And so there's also an introduction to each of those strands that we do have some amendments on, it looks like. So when, then we have the writing committee after March 28th. So this means that it was submitted after the 30 days, but within here, that column C, if you look at what's in column C, and I'm going to read it, I know that might take a second. If a student has not mastered previous grade level standards, the teacher will need to intervene in order to fill the student's skill gaps. That is what came out of committee. That's in totality. So when Board Member Klein is bringing forward motion 1, she's in C, deleting need to intervene in order to fill the student's skill gaps, and then she's inserting in column D for it to read instead, provide academic remediation. So as you'll see, what's taken out, what's put in, and so her final motion would then be, her motion 1 to amend the introduction would be what column D states.
Thank you. Is that clear? Does any board member have questions about
I have a
the
question.
information? Now, none of these amendments have been made officially. This is just an example of if the amendment is made and we have it already, how we are sharing the information for clarity. Okay,
May I ask a question?
yeah,
of
yes,
Superintendent Norman? Is-
Member Bragas.
Is this the same document that we got in our email? Is it identical, or has it been updated?
It should be identical. There might be a word change, but I think that there was one that was added. I think Board Member Bogus, if you're asking if yours has been added to it, I think there's, yours was a 7th and 8th grade amendment, and so we added that one. Is that the one that?
Well, that was my second question. I'm just looking at yours, and my document in row 2 starts at motion batch 5, and I have a little consternation because if I get confused, then I look silly, and I would rather look silly now than 10 times later in the day.
Yes, so are you on the introduction at the very bottom? On the tabs? So thank you for that. If you look at the bottom, the first tab is introduction, and then it will be preschool 3, preschool 4, then kindergarten, first grade. So thank you, that actually helps everyone.
Yeah.
My apologies.
No,
I
yeah.
was,
I didn't state that, so thank you.
but no, thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Okay, and that answers your question, Member Bogus?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Member Klein, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So my first motion is, let's see, how do we say this?
Chair Hart?
Yes.
Just a question before we start on the amendments. With the amount of amendments that we're reviewing today, is it possible, since I know a lot of folks have amendments, to limit the amount of amendments per person and move around in a circle and come back through and have that as a rule before we start amendments?
We would have to vote on that.
Parliamentary.
To have a set amount of amendments per member and rotate around?
The question I'm asking the parliamentarian is, does that need a motion and a vote, or is that chair prerogative?
No, we're not.
So I don't think it's a limitation, it's a sequence question of moving around.
Not a
Is that-
limitation, but if
that
we
right?
if we are going to do that, does it need a motion and a vote, or is it chair's prerogative to go around the table for amendments?
That's a chair's
That's a
prerogative.
chair's prerogative. Okay,
that sounds
let's, Natalie, Member Klein, are you planning on moving all of these motions?
Yes.
Okay, then let's do,
May I speak to that motion?
it's not a motion.
Oh, it's not a motion yet? Okay, can I speak to the idea?
Yes.
So and I spent a lot of time in this, probably 7 or 8 hours in these.
Yes.
And I think that, we were asked to send them to staff and all of those things. And I'm, as I cogitate on that, if I have one for 7th and 8th grade in particular, and we're going around the table, we're jumping from
Yeah.
intro, kindergarten, to
Understood.
7th grade, to this, to that. I just don't know that that would be a prudent use of our time, especially if our brains get in a box, they can stay in a box.
Member Bogus, to go to that point, we will go by grade level, and we will make sure that we will stop and make sure everybody's on that grade level are handled before we go to the next grade level. Does that make sense? That's how we're going to chunk them.
This, Chair, do you
Yes.
mind? This, I think, gives you more opportunity, because if we were to go through all 82 at once, we may never get to your amendment. And so, I'm actually
And-
looking for more opportunity for members to have amendments.
Thank you. We're going to do it this way, so we're going to start with
Intro.
intro. Do you have amendments in intro? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, so I move to amend the introduction to read, if a student has not mastered previous grade level standards, the teacher will provide academic remediation.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Is there any discussion?
So we don't need, I just have a clarifying question. We don't need to be on here. We're just going to hit things as we come to the grade level, right? So we
That's
can take
correct.
our.
Yes, you can take but please signal if you do have in this case, an intro standard.
So, Chair, may I speak to this motion?
Yes. Unless we get to our hard stop. Yes, ma'am?
May I speak to the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so, I want to be clear and succinct, and I reached out to, I work with about 300 teachers every week. I reached out to people that I disagree with vehemently. I reached out to people that are just random people in the hallway, and I got many responses to these standards, one of which was very hostile toward the board. And that response was, Christina, what is the board thinking? Why haven't they called in any teachers to look at these standards? So while I understand that there's two sides to this debate, you have many teachers in this state that have read these standards, and when I say many, at least 20, and they view them as not having been reviewed by experts. So there's an element of that I think we need to consider. I think we need to consider that they are far-reaching and long-standing. And, I did everything from reach out to heads of LEA, and the consistent response is that the work is not done. And so I would just ask us all to really cogitate on the fact that there's a dichotomy and diverse opinions, and to just listen with open minds today.
Thank you, Member Bowden.
So, thank
But
you.
we need to stick with the amendment, please. Is there any comment towards the amendment? All right, all in favor, we're going to go to a vote. The amendment is, I'm sorry, yes, Dr.
I
Norman.
have a clarifying question, which is the only questions I'll be asking today.
It's okay.
Board Member Klein, in your motion 1 amendment, I think that it was, which would encompass lines 2, 3, all the way down, because it was the introduction, right? And so it would go to line, is it 9? Or or would you like to go line by line? I just need to make sure which one I'm putting in that last box.
So
Member Klein?
motion 1 is all that's showing right there. The next one down is motion 2.
Is that clarifying?
Is there?
Thank you.
Yeah, this.
We're going to do show of hands unless there's a dissension, then we'll go to all right. Restating the motion, which is really hard to see. The motion is to amend the sentence to state, if a student has not mastered previous grade level standards, the teacher will provide academic remediation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, we are going to do a roll call vote. Member Bogus?
Yes.
Booth?
No.
Klein?
Yes.
Davis?
No.
Earl? Green?
Yes.
Hymus?
No.
Carey?
Yes.
Lear?
No.
Norton?
No.
Reel?
No.
Straight?
No.
Wood?
No.
Moss?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Do you have another
Okay,
amendment
yes.
for this?
I do, so,
I did fail my first test. I can't count. What is the vote? The motion fails as a vote. 9 opposed. All right.
so, I motion number 2, I move to amend speaking and listening strand description to read as stated. The following standard offers, do you want me to read them all? I can.
Read your amendment, yes. It needs to be in the
following
record.
standards offer a focus for speaking and listening instruction each year to help ensure that students gain adequate mastery of a range of academic skills and applications. The standards stress preparing for and participating effectively in a range of conversations. Students advancing through the grades are expected to meet each year's grade-specific standards, retain previous knowledge gained, and further expand upon academic skills mastered in preceding grades. And that's the end of the substantive part of.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have comments? Discussion to the motion. Thank you. No, yes. So Moss is first, then Green. Okay. Board Member Green? Oh, then Board Member, then you. Board Member Green.
Thank you. I do appreciate the sentence, students develop useful interpersonal. I know in our first meeting, we were talking about sometimes sentences could be leading versus being more of standard-based, which is why I think I liked the use of academic skills better. It seemed more targeted towards a direct standard approach instead of the full sentence. So that would be my reasoning to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights, the motion before the board is, you got it. Tell me which motion it is. To amend the speaking and listening strand description to state the following standards offer a focus for speaking and listening instruction each year to help ensure students gain adequate mastery of a range of academic skills and applications. The standards stress preparing for and participating effectively in a range of conversations. Students advancing through the grades are expected to meet each year's grade-specific standards, retain previous knowledge gained, and further expand upon academic skills mastered in preceding grades. Young students may master acquisition of certain speech sounds at different ages. The chart below includes the typical age of acquisition of each sound. Please vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Because he's online. Okay. All right, these are all going to have roll call. I know. We'll do it. We'll go the other way.
I'll just do the roll call.
Perfect.
Okay, here we go. Bogus. Yes. Booth.
No.
Klein.
Yes.
Davis.
No.
Green. Yes. Hart.
I'm a tiebreaker now.
Hymus. No. Carey.
Yes.
Lear.
No.
Norton.
No.
Reel.
No.
Straight.
No.
Wood.
No.
And I'm a no.
You got to say no.
Oh, sorry, Moss, you're at the bottom.
I'm a no.
Okay.
Green, can you
Green, were-
restate?
Would you mind giving your vote again? No.
I said yes.
I'm sorry, Green. Green is a yes. by a vote of what? Motion fails with 11 noes. Next standard, or next amendment?
Okay, I move to amend the reading strand. It's the description portion, and it's quite lengthy, so I'll just, the parts that are deleted, we strike deepening and add furthering. The next part is text should reflect a variety of genres, time periods, topics, and societies, and strike perspectives, cultures, and backgrounds. And then add on the sentence, students must also be immersed in reading challenging, complex texts to, and then we add seek knowledge, gain understanding, strike actively make meaning, add further dialogue. Then it reads answer questions, solve problems, strike out and craft arguments, add write persuasively, articulate ideas, assert and defend well-researched claims, and strike articulate ideas. And then down in the last paragraph of that, engaging students in strike deep and add robust discussions. Actually, I'm just going to leave that one, just discussions, if you can take out robust. So engaging students in discussions and writing of text is imperative to their growth and development as readers. Writing and discussion of text focuses on key ideas and details, and then it adds analysis and formulation, craft and structure of knowledge, ideas, and claims.
I have a point of information.
Yes,
So
Member Carey.
my only concern is that, and this is not to prolong the time, but if the purpose of creating the record is so that someone can follow along with it at a future date and time, who may not have all this data in front of them, is it appropriate to not read the entire text and just the edits because you can't follow
That-
It
along?
would be faster.
The thing about that, though, is the same place they would be accessing the audio, this is available. And this document was added to backup. So they would be able to access that. So I completely understand what you're saying, but I do think this would be available at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, the last paragraph there, students then need to return to previously read text to compare, then we strike with other texts, and then add organize, strike out synthesize and then finish the paragraph information from multiple texts for presentations, projects, or additional writing.
Is there a second?
I would second and
Sec-
move to amend.
And move to amend? Okay.
So I would like to.
Hold on. Are you prepared to, is staff prepared to type an amendment somewhere?
I need one more point of clarification on where we left in the word robust. Is that on line 6 or 7?
Oh. Sorry, I've got it on a different screen here.
And for clarification, if anyone watching along with the motions, how it's written is the motion to amend the reading strand introduction, and then at the end of each one of those is the word and then we follow it with line 5 and, then line 6 and, to line 7 and then on line 8, it would have the period at the end ending the motion. So I just want to make sure we have that as
Okay,
stated.
I see robust on line 8. The first sentence, first line on line 8.
Okay, and so you want it,
So it will just
Okay.
read
Perfect.
engaging
Thank
students
you.
in discussions.
thank you.
Is that clear? Is staff ready to prepare or type an amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Member Bogus.
Okay, so on behalf of 3 of Utah's teachers, I would move to amend in line 4 that it say, "and advancing reading comprehension skills," striking the words "furthering comprehension."
Okay, is there a second? Second, Green. Yes, ma'am?
Board Member Bogus, in clarification, are you amending Board Member Klein's E, or are you amending D?
It's an amendment to the amendment.
I'm going to have to admit very humbly that I'm confused by your question.
Okay. If right here, I'm highlighting E, Board Member Klein moved to amend in her initial motion so that it stated the following reading standards offer a focus for reading instruction while building core knowledge and furthering comprehension. In doing so, she deleted in line C the word deepening, and she changed that word to furthering. So is your amendment then striking what was in C, which came from the writing committee, or E, which was Board Member Klein's motion?
My intention, and I'm so sorry, Superintendent Norman, I don't mean to be tripping up the process. My intention was to amend Member Klein's amendment in column E and strike the words furthering comprehension and add the words advancing reading comprehension skills. And I would like to speak to the motion.
Okay. Dr. Norman, did you find the place? Okay. Member Bogus, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, so like I said, the feedback I received on these was all over the map, but coming back to a number of teachers, and when I say a number, I mean more than 10. And so they really don't like this word deepening. And I know we're just in the introduction, but it's not measurable. And standards should be measurable. And if we're going to hold our teachers to these standards and assess their performance and efficacy in the classroom based upon these standards, the standards should be both measurable and achievable. And so there is a desire for a focus on skill acquisition as opposed to nebulous words that are subjective.
Okay. Any other comments?
No, thank you, ma'am.
Member Reel, do you have a comment on this amendment to the amendment?
Yeah, I have a comment on this, both amendments, amendment to the amendment and this amendment. I think it's important to remember that these intros, the introduction sections are not standards. They're supposed to give an overview of the standards. And when we make changes to these introductions, it affects all of the standards. It's something I've learned being on the standards committee. It doesn't make they have to all align, so it actually causes a lot of issues. I also wanted to mention that societies and perspective, cultures, and backgrounds are not synonymous with each other. And so it actually doesn't, they have different meanings. So substituting societies with cultures and diverse cultures and perspective cultures and backgrounds actually doesn't work within this in any of the standards, and there's a bunch of times when that's amendment in that way. It's also really hard to define societies. They're not synonymous, so I just wanted to make a note on that.
All right, thank you.
Ready?
Going
Chair,
to-
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
I really, again, I'm not trying to trip it up. I really struggle seeing the board, and I was wondering if I promise not to touch it, if I could please have access to the Google Doc. Because,
The email, the Google Doc has been emailed to you and is in your email just now.
so I have an attachment, but I don't have access to what I'm looking at on the screen.
It just got
She,
sent.
Well, not the live one.
Yeah.
oh,
Exact documents being shared, Excel spreadsheet that shows.
it doesn't have, you're looking for the updates?
I'm looking for the live document. I can barely read E and F. And I just want to make certain that I'm understanding when people are speaking and that I'm in the same spot that they are, if possible. And if that's not possible, if it's against the rules.
Okay. The Google document can't be shared, from what I understand?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, you can share it?
I can give
View-only
viewer rights.
access?
I can give viewer rights. And would anyone else, while I'm at it, like viewer right? No? Absolutely. So would anyone else like that?
I see.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
going to do the side super quick.
Yeah, no problem. Any other comments towards the motion? Okay, seeing none, let's vote.
Bogus,
Point of order?
Yes.
I think we have to vote on the amendment to the amendment.
right.
We
before
are.
vote on
That's
the
right.
amendment.
We are voting
Do you
on
wanna
the
read-
amendment to the amendment. I can read that.
Just that first.
Strike furthering, I can't,
So maybe you need it up on
strike,
yours to go.
yes, I'm sorry. Where did it go? Where?
I got this
Amendment, strike furthering comprehension and add advancing reading comprehension.
Reading
That-
comprehension skills.
Skills. Please add the word skills to that motion. Okay? Vice Chair Earl?
Bogus,
Yes.
Booth,
No.
Klein,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Earl, yes. Green,
Yes.
Hart, Moss, or Hymus,
Yes.
Lear,
No.
Norton. No. Real,
No.
Straight,
Member Straight?
and Wood.
Yes.
Moss,
Yes.
what do we get for the votes? Okay, that,
That motion does not pass with 8 nay votes. So we're back to the original motion. The original motion is,
It's very long.
yes, it's very long. Someone needs to give it to me. I didn't memorize it. Motion is to amend the reading strand introduction to state, the following reading standards offer a focus for reading instruction while building core knowledge and furthering comprehension, and just text should reflect a variety of genres, time periods, topics, and societies, and an important part of comprehension reading instruction is that students acquire knowledge of language, particularly in using accurate academic and domain-specific words and phrases sufficient for reading, writing, and speaking, and students must also be immersed in reading challenging, complex texts to seek knowledge, gain understanding, further dialogue, answer questions, solve problems, write persuasively, articulate ideas, assert and defend well-researched claims, and engaging students in discussions and writing of text is imperative to their growth and development as readers. Writing and discussion of text focuses on key ideas and details, analysis and formulation, craft and structure of knowledge, ideas, and claims. Students then need to return to previously read text to compare and organize information from multiple texts for presentations, projects, or additional writing. Any comments to the motion? Member Bogus.
So I would just speak in support of the motion for many reasons, but ultimately, it becomes measurable. And when you put the column D in line with a rubric, it's unable to be measured, and column E would be able to be measured. And that is one piece of feedback that I've received consistently is it needs to be measurable and achievable. And so to that end, I would support the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? Member Reel?
Oh, nope, I just have a,
Okay. Seeing none, we will vote.
okay, Moss,
Yes.
Wood,
Use your microphone.
No.
Straight,
No.
Real,
no.
Norton,
No.
Lear,
No.
Hymus. No. Hart, Green. Earl, no. Davis,
No.
Klein,
Yes.
Booth,
No.
and Bogus.
Yes.
Okay,
Motion fails with 9 opposed. Next motion.
okay.
Member Reel, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a substitute motion to approve this section as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion to the motion?
I don't think it's germane to the initial motion,
It's a substitute motion.
I have a question.
but the initial motion is to approve the standards as written.
Yeah, it would have to be
It-
an amendment or something.
It's, It's a substitution. It's not an amendment to the amendment. It's a substitution of the original motion. Oh, there's not
Just
a motion on the
clarification,
floor.
the original motion.
So
was-
it's
Okay,
just
so
a
I guess, yeah,
motion.
I'd like to make,
There
make
is a motion
a
on the floor.
motion to amend the English language arts standards as written.
We are not in the middle of a motion, so that is
Oh.
correct. It's just a regular motion.
Okay.
Thank you. Does that change the second?
A point of clarification. I'm
Yes.
sorry, now I'm super confused. I thought we had a motion on the floor to pass the standards as coming out of committee. And this, now we are working on an amendment
You are
to
right.
the introduction, and now there's a substitute motion
There is.
to pass this section instead of amend. And my question
There
is,
is.
does this section mean the introduction?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Davis, for keeping us on track. Yeah, as was I, obviously. So there's a motion and a second on the floor. Did someone type that motion for me to repeat? The motion on the floor is to
Approve
approve
the
the
introduction,
introduction as
the introduction section.
section
As
as written.
I have a motion to amend.
Substitute motion. Are you amending what's in the substitute? Okay, go for it.
To approve the introduction section as amended.
Is there a second?
But none of the amendments passed.
Oh, none of the amendments have passed, so there hasn't been any amendments.
Oh.
Okay. But understood. Okay, we're back to a motion that has a second. To restate the motion is to approve the introduction section as written. We will go to a vote.
All right, Moss.
Yes.
Leanne.
Yes.
Or, sorry, Wood.
Yes.
Okay, Straight.
Yes.
Rill.
Yes.
Norton.
Yes.
Lear.
Yes.
Hymus.
Yes.
Green.
No.
Earl. No. Davis.
Yes.
Klein.
No.
Booth.
Yes.
And Bogus.
Sorry, point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
This is, ultimately, it's an attempt to close debate. So I think if we want to close debate, we need to vote on closing debate.
Actually,
Because
there's,
I do believe Robert's Rules of Order says that as long as someone wants to amend a section, you can't make a motion to close debate.
we're not closing debate. There's a
On
different
this section.
emotion. There's a motion on the floor. We've got a rule on it. That was a new motion. It was a new motion. Are we,
The motion is to accept the contents as they are written.
No.
so no? That motion passes with 9 in favor. We now move to pre-K 3 section. Do we have motions in this section? Member Klein.
All right. I move motion 5, which is a batch motion to amend the speaking and listening strand, P through 12. It covers lines 1 through 5, it would appear on the spreadsheet. So this is, part of the reason I have so many motions is because we're vertically aligning it. So you'll see all the sections that it affects in that batch, in the column A. So basically, it would change, I move to amend it to read, students will learn to create, express, and listen to ideas, integrate and evaluate information from various sources, and use media, visual displays, language, and grammar to more clearly communicate with others. Participate in conversations with peers and adults. Practice listening to others discussing a topic and taking turns speaking, following one-step directions. Speak clearly and audibly enough to be understood by familiar adults to communicate wants and needs. Use situation-specific language. I'm still in there, right? Situation-specific language, grammar, volume, and pronunciation when speaking or presenting.
Is there a second?
I would second.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Any discussion?
I just want to clarify, this is only affecting, I just want to make sure I'm clear. This is only affecting the preschool, or is it affecting grades pre through 12? So it's,
Yeah.
It affects the speaking and listening strand. So
so for every grade?
for all of those that are listed on the left, you can see it's P3, P4, first grade.
Oh, I see.
Do you
Okay,
see?
okay, I'm tracking there. I was just looking at the first line, trying to figure that out. So I see, or got it over there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to amend batch motions in trike? What am I missing here? Oh, and strike with prompting and support. Oh, my goodness. P3 SL1, P3 SL2, P3 SL3, P3 R1, AB, P3 R2, ABC, P3 R3, AB, P3 R5, P3 R6 and 7, P3 W1 through 3, P3 W4 AB, P3 W5, P4 R2, B, E, F, P4 R5, P4 R6, 7, P4 R8, KRS 1 R3 AB. That
So
is
I
great.
apologize, that is.
That's vertical articulation.
Motion 5 and motion 6 together.
Okay, thank you, and that's vertically articulated. I will not. You have it in front of you. We will, no other
Point of order.
comments?
I have a
Just a
comment.
point
I
of
have a question.
clarification. Oh, sorry.
And point of order.
I have a question about the motion.
Okay, that's a point of order, so go ahead.
Okay. My question about the motion, this is a complete rewrite of the speaking and listening standards. And I'd like to hear from staff, or if there's anyone from the writing committee here, if it works with the the way we have the process set up is that we have public comment, we have the writing committee, we have comment, we have the writing committee. And this, I don't know well enough. This feels like doing a complete rewrite of the speaking and listening is going to be harmful because it's not going to be able to go back to our experts. And so I'd like to know if I'm correct in that, or if they have any expertise on that.
Is there someone from staff willing to answer that?
Yes, Sarah
So
Wibke.
recognized.
Sarah Wibke, Literacy Coordinator for the Utah State Board of Education. As far as, I want to make sure I'm following too, so this is a batch motion that's also batched into 5 and 6, right? I want to make sure I'm following.
Yes, motion
Great.
5 and
I just
6
wanna make sure I'm
ended up
answering
getting
it
stuck
well.
together accidentally. Yeah.
Sure, yep, no problem. And so in thinking about sort of those two different components, one of them being the strand, so the strands, that little, like, it's not an introduction, but it's almost like a strand statement that goes, it is the same in every single grade because it's just the statement for the strand. And so it's like a mini introduction to all of the standards. And if it is changed, it may or may not then continue to align with the standards. And then if more changes are made, then it might then be out of line too as far as alignment. And then, was there a question? Correct me.
Did that
Sorry, it was
answer
a
the
lot.
question, Member Reel?
Yeah, I want to make sure.
Yeah, and I would love to have you speak on, you guys are great when we're in standards and assessment when we talk about this. The reason the process was set up so that it could go back to if there is a complete rewrite, it's important to have that writing committee expertise. Is it important to have that writing committee expertise in that process? And this would mean it would go straight into curriculum development with the rewrite, okay.
Correct, yes, and I mean, Jennifer will correct me if I'm wrong, but the process is that all of the changes come in so that once the changes are made, then vertical alignment can occur by the committee. The committee is now done, their work is done, so they have been released, except for those in the audience today. We are so grateful for them. But yes, this would be the final version of that.
Thank you.
point of
I see other, yes, Member Bogus.
So, but that doesn't preclude a motion to send this back to committee for review.
Yes. Deputy
As
Songs.
in the Standards and Assessment Committee, that
Deputy
wouldn't
Norman.
preclude a motion.
If we could have Chief of Staff Young show the standards revision process again.
Sure.
When we talk about what the process is, it's not a part of the traditional process, and so I think that would be something that this board would need to discuss. If we go down on that after this meeting, then what it is the writing committee has been disbanded. So right now, as you're going through and making additional amendments at this point in time, these would be considered final amendments that are on here without it going back to a committee that's already been disbanded. The writing committee is here today as part of the process, as they're required, as part of the process to be here in case there's questions that are asked or answered, but there's not, if it goes back to a committee or whatnot, isn't a part of this traditional process. And again, I wanted to remind everyone, this process is the last time we are using this process, and it is changed for the next time. And so I think that would maybe be a question for AG Quisenberry or for board leadership to determine if it was something that could be considered outside of the traditional path.
Let's see. Can everybody see what's on the screen? Does it need to be bigger?
No, I can see that one.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Did
you.
that answer
You
your
said
question?
bigger and I said thank you. On the public record, Vice Chair Hart.
It is, that's what it is. Did that answer your question?
Well, no, as my understanding of Robert's rules is that Robert's rules trumps process, and if a motion were to be made and approved by this board, to send this back, after it's amended, to send it back to Standards and Assessment so that they can review and bring it back to the full board, so that it gets one more set of eyes in its full scope, that would be in order.
Well,
No.
hold on.
I mean, the
Hold
Standards
on.
and Assessment Committee.
Quisenberry?
Yes, if I may. So I know we referred to it as a process, but it was actually a voted, debated, analyzed motion back in July of 2020 that the board at that time unanimously approved and agreed. So that would be more akin, not as like an informal process, but that would be like an approved rule or an approved policy. And so it's my opinion that Robert's Rules does not trump a vote of this board in that manner. And then to your question about if you voted now to send it back to the committee, it's my opinion that would be outside this process. Essentially what you would be doing is amending the process. So in theory, maybe your question is, can we amend the process with a vote? Well, that's not even teed up under Open Public Meeting Act is an appropriate motion. So, I think that'd be kind of a challenge.
Thank you for your guidance. Do we have, next up would be Vice Chair Earl? You're next.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I asked about, this was one that was asked about. If I'm reading this right, it was the prompting and support. Is that right? That's what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay. So this was one I asked about as well because it seemed redundant to put that on there. I don't know that it changes the outcome by having it on there. When I asked about it, because to me it seems redundant and necessary, but it is common that that's what's been previously on there, and it's just that. This is what you do at this age. And I guess I'm just sharing that because that was one, I didn't move this in committee because I was able to get my information and ask about it. And I don't know that it's here or there as far as the outcome of the actual standards and what is to be taught. It speaks more to the developmental age where at that age, you're going to be prompting and supporting versus doing something else. So that's just my input because it was responded to by the writing committee. They preferred the language, and this was something I asked more in depth about because I had some questions about it as well.
So
Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Member Davis is next? No? Okay. Member Bogus is next?
I would like to divide the motion, 5 and 6.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor is there a second?
Second.
I heard a second. The motion is now on the floor to divide the question.
May I speak to the motion?
Or divide the, yes.
Question. So I firmly believe, just as a general path of forward movement, that everything should be debated individually and on its individual merits. And I'm not really in favor of omnibus motions. But again, I'm moving things on behalf of educators that have reached out to me specifically. And so I would ask that we debate these on their individual merits for that purpose.
Thank you. Comments to this motion? Member Green, comment to the motion? Member Wood, comment to the motion? Member Davis, comment to the motion?
I would probably speak against this one only because the motions are already batched. And so if we take everything individually, it's going to be, we'd have to separate, even out all of the batched motions. I'm fine dividing these two motions if people feel that they're going to vote differently on 5 and 6. But if they're already batched and people are going to vote the same anyway, I would just move against the motion or speak against the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments to this motion specifically?
I'll speak to it. They are different. 5 and 6, I didn't mean to lump them together.
Okay.
So they are
okay.
their own batches.
Thank you. Member Green?
I guess I'm just speaking to it. I would like to divide 5 and 6 because I'd like to divide 1 from 6.
Okay. Any other comments to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. The motion on the floor is to divide 5 and 6.
Bogus?
Yes.
Booth? Klein?
Yes.
Davis?
No.
Earl, yes. Green?
Yes.
Hymus? No. Carrie, Lear? No. Norton?
No.
Rill?
No.
Straight?
No.
Wood?
Yes.
And Moss?
Yes.
5, 6, 7.
So that motion fails with 7 votes. Oh, is it tied? Oh, no.
No, okay. I know.
So does it?
We've got one
Oh, you
missing.
do? Okay. What is the vote? What is the vote?
Okay, so just say it twice, will you?
So that motion fails because there, with 7 votes, yes. Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay. So returning to the motion on the table is,
So then I would like to speak to the motion if possible.
yeah, I've got to repeat the motion, but I got to find it. Is it on the screen? Oh, my heavens.
So you could just,
I sometimes forget they can hear that on the internet.
you could just read the strand and then strike prompting and support.
No, I
from
don't.
the next
It's the one with all the numbers.
Well, which one? Pre-4, pre-3?
Pre-3.
Here we go.
You got it? You got to go. Oh, yes. The motion on the floor is to strike with prompting and support. No, it's right there. Yep. On P3 S11, P3 SL2, P3 SL3, P3 R1 AB, P3 R2 ABC, P3 R3 AB, P3 R5, P3 R67, P3 W13, P3 W4 AB, P3 W5, P4 R2, B, E, F, P4, R5, P4, R6, 7, P4, R8, K, R5, 1, R3, A, B. Let's vote.
Can I speak to that?
I would like to
Oh,
speak
I'm
to the
sorry.
motion.
I'm
didn't-
sorry.
you
That
didn't
was
read
too many
this.
numbers. Member Klein.
Clarification, you didn't read Strand 5, or Motion 5. You just read Motion 6.
Okay. Yes, motion 6. I read 6 or I read 5?
You read 6.
Okay, so now I'm going to read 5. We already, okay. Batch amend speaking and listening strand P12. Motion 6, batched motion strike with prompting and support. P3 SL1, P3 SL2, P3 SL3, P3.
No. You already read that part.
Oh, okay, great.
You just,
Okay, I see what,
You just didn't read
thank
the
you.
strand.
I didn't, you're right. All right, let's vote.
Hold on.
Oh, we have comments, that's right. I'm so sorry.
Vice Chair Hart.
Those numbers are a lot.
Okay, so I made many affirmations that I would bring things to this board, even if I disagreed with them. And there are a pocket of educators that are gravely concerned about the age-appropriate language. They've articulated that in the study of neuroscience, there's a lot of issues with neurodivergence, and that when you use language like age-appropriate, it defaults to the internal bias of the default or the predominant culture. And their concern is that if we engage the words age-appropriate, the internal bias of the educator ultimately creates an unlevel playing field for the teachers, or for the students, rather, and their language in and about this conversation was about white supremacy and what that does to the classroom as it relates to subjective language like age-appropriate. So they would like that struck, and I do support Member Klein's language of situation-specific, and there has been agreement that that would alleviate their concerns.
Okay.
I'm not following, I'm sorry, point of order. I don't know where age appropriate is there. Can you just help point it out to me? Am I missing something?
It's on Motion 6, on the deleted column, which is column C. C is what's deleted, D is what's been added.
So prompting, I see prompting and support, begin to recognize rules for discussion, stay on. Those are stricken. What am I missing?
It's P3 SL3.
It's in
Lines
row
3,
5.
4, and 5 are
Oh, you're
Motion
saying it
6.
continues down.
Yes.
Column,
Right,
row
okay.
5.
Thank you, sorry.
All right,
I'm tracking
Member
now.
Wood?
In speaking with kindergarten, excuse me, preschool teachers, there was some concern with removing prompting and support because they said it makes the standard no longer age appropriate because they are not able to do those things on their own, but that with prompting and support, they are able to do those things, and so it's making a standard age appropriate.
Okay. Member Klein?
So
Although I guess
prompting and support doesn't really fit for a standard, because a standard is something that's assessed. Prompting and support is something the teacher does. They can still do that, it just shouldn't be in the standard, because the standard is what the student is being assessed on.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, Bogus,
We're voting on two batch motions together,
We
5,
are.
6, 6, 2, 3, 4, and 5,
Yes.
correct? Yes.
Booth,
We're doing 5 and 6?
Lines 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, yeah. No.
Klein,
Yes.
Davis,
No.
Earl, no. Green,
No.
Hart,
No.
Hymus. No. Lear,
No.
Norton,
No.
Rill,
No.
Straight,
No.
and Wood.
No.
Moss.
No.
With 12 noes, that motion fails. Next motion, Member Earl? Do you have it? Okay. Member Bogus?
I'm a what? I thought
Do you
I
have
was
a
in grade
motion?
7 and 8.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm just going on.
No, hey, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just going by the order in which the lights were hit.
Yeah.
Your light was hit. Do you have a motion?
Oh, no, No, ma'am, I'm so sorry.
Okay,
Point of
Member Reel?
clarification.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, I'd like to go back to the original motion and make that same motion that we vote to move the English language arts standards as written.
Is there a second?
All of them?
All of
them, the whole thing.
Okay, point of order, Chair Moss?
That was my question, is
Uh,
all of
Oh,
them,
that
as
was,
opposed to a
okay.
particular grade or segment?
Okay. Clarification on the motion, it is all of the sections. Do we have this,
point
is
of
that
order.
still the second? Hold on. That is still a second. Point of order?
That this is a motion to shut down debate when there are motions on the table. Like, there are amendments still to be made.
There's no motions on the table right now.
There are still but there is still amendments to be made.
The motion on the floor is still Member Booth's.
As long as people want to amend, Robert's rules says they can.
Can I,
She wanted to go back to the original motion that Randy made.
so there's no motion pending. The
Well,
fact
if there
that
is,
some-
Randy's motion is pending.
Oh, it's in our bylaws.
The underlying motion, that there's no other amendment pending though, right
No.
now? That's my point, yeah, we just voted on amendment and it failed. So the only thing on the floor is I think Chair Booth's motion.
This is-
So it's not,
This is,
Point of order.
it's not ceasing debate on motions that haven't yet been brought.
I think, I could be incorrect, but I think the issue is with our bylaws, not with Robert's rules.
yes, bylaws.
State the bylaw, please.
It says there is no limit to the number of times a member may speak to a question, and motions to close or limit debate generally are not in order.
We're not closing debate because there's no motion on, the only motion on the table is Member Booth's.
Good. Because I still have amendments to bring on this section.
But they're not on the table, so what would have to happen is this motion would have to fail, and then we're back to introducing amendments. That's how it goes. That's the process. Yes, would you clarify in case we're wrong in any way?
I'm just a little confused. So we have, Member Booth has got on the floor his motion,
Right.
and then we've done a couple of
We've
amendments
done
to
it.
that motion.
That's correct.
And now Member Reel has moved to what, restate his motion. And so you've got amendments, so then wouldn't you do an amendment to, motion to amend Member Reel's
Okay, is that,
motion?
So substitute motion?
Or a substitute
would-
motion?
well, it depends on what you're
There,
going
mo-
to.
mo-
If it's,
motion to
if it's
substitute.
substantial, then it would be a substitute.
Yeah.
If it's a tweak to her motion, then it would be an amendment to the amendment. To the amendment.
So that,
Well,
yeah,
that,
yeah,
she can't substitute if there's not a motion on the floor.
I,
So she went to
AAG,
previous
isn't she just
motion.
calling the question on the original amendment?
You say she, are we talking about?
Yes, Member Reel.
So, okay, yeah, instead of restating then essentially, yeah, calling
She's,
the question.
she's calling the question on the
Question.
amendment that's on, the motion that's on the floor. That would have to
End all
fail.
debate, and then you go to Member Booth's. Yeah, I think that's the better form of Member Reel's motion. is
Okay.
To call the question, so you
So
need to,
previous question requires 2/3.
Correct,
that's right.
yeah. So please state your,
I'd like to call the question the original motion.
okay, the question's
previous
been called.
question.
Is previous question, is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second for previous question. We need a 2/3 vote. Please, Vice Chair Earl, will you?
Yep. All right. We'll start at the bottom. Moss.
No.
Wood.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Brill.
Yes.
Norton.
Yes.
Lear.
Yes.
Yes.
Hymus. Hart.
Yes.
Green. No. Earl. No. Davis.
Yes.
Klein.
No.
Booth.
Yes.
And Bogus.
No.
The
Need 2/3.
9 people voted yes, that would be 2/3, the motion carries
Point of order, I think you have to have 2/3 of the entire board. I do believe it's 10 votes.
But Member Carey is
That's right,
absent.
but it has, we have to have 10.
I still have. I do believe the bylaws says you have to have 10.
So that motion fails. So we are continuing. Next motion is,
Can I just clarify the yellow box? That
hold on,
means-
there's, what the yellow box is?
Yeah.
Can you clarify what the yellow box is, Deputy
Yes,
Superintendent?
It was specific to bringing forward a motion, and I think on that one, it just was from a previous motion in a committee, therefore it wasn't part of Board Member Klein's motion, so it wasn't one of your motions.
It
bringing
already
forward.
passed in committee.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Does that answer that? Okay. Next motion,
So,
hold on, Member Bogus? I'm so sorry. Do you have a motion? Your light is on. Thank you. Member. Just going by the order. Thanks. Member Klein?
okay, so I move to,
Hold on, can we have attention, please? Thank you.
Point of order.
Point of order?
Yes, can I ask a question on the yellow?
Yes?
It appears to me, and I was not part of the committee, I was listening from afar, but that member, or Vice Chair Earl put in the Seminole documents and said, please put them in across the board. And then there's a motion from Member Klein to remove that from the section. Is
that's
that-
not my motion.
So, but in the document that came to us, it was missing. So it's not there. You may not have, sorry, but.
I think I can answer that question.
Member Bogus?
So I think there, in the board backup, there were a number of documents. And one was like, here's the original draft of the writing committee. Here's the amended version by the Standards and Assessments Committee. And then there was like this pseudo final draft thing. And if you didn't go into the one about the standards and assessments, you didn't actually see the S&A amendments.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
So just a point of order. Is the Seminole documents in the preschool or not?
Deputy Stallings?
It did not pass
It did not
in
pass?
committee.
Okay. Okay.
There was other verbiage that passed, but you left out Seminole document.
No, that's the language. Am I wrong?
Did you?
Staff, is there
did you
anyone from
put
staff
it
that
in or
can
take it
clarify what
out?
passed?
Put it in.
My understanding is if we look at column C, that's what is on the table right now. And so you would not look at the red as being crossed out. You would look at it as though it were in there. And then this motion that came up was for someone to cross it out and then have it read what's in column D. Is that correct? Yeah.
If
So
there's no, so we've got to have a,
motion C is what came out of the committee. So it would read, students will learn to proficiently read and comprehend grade level literature and informational text, including seminal U.S. documents of historical and literary significance and so forth. And I think that this amendment is from someone, I'm not sure
whose
who.
amendment? That's the question.
Is the
No one-
D, yeah. And it would have in there, I'm not sure.
So we just wait for whoever's the next person.
If they
put
want to
an
bring it
amendment.
forward or
Yes.
not bring it forward, yes, correct.
So currently, it's in there. It's-
Currently,
that
it
language
states-
is still in the draft.
What's in C, and you would read C as though the red and the strike through is still there.
Why is it strict? Yeah. Anyway,
It can,
I'm going to move motion 14, which is lines 7, 8, and 9.
Let's-
So it would move, it would amend it to read, demonstrate concepts of print, correctly hold a book and recognize that print is read from top to bottom, left to right, and front to back. Begin to recognize frequently seen letters and words and recognize own name in print. Demonstrate phonological awareness skills, explore rhyming words and alliteration, explore syllables in simple words, identify initial sounds in spoken language, demonstrate phonics skills, begin to identify 7 or more consonant names and sounds using one-to-one letter sound correspondence alphabetic principle, begin begin to identify one or more vowel names and short vowel sounds using one-to-one letter sound correspondence alphabet principle. So you can see in column C what was stricken. Simply, it strikes, batch 14 is a striking of mastery of age appropriate. The with prompting and support was part of a previous motion. So again, this simply gets to the heart of what is it they're being asked to demonstrate and taking out the subjective language. Either they can do it or they can't.
So do we have a second?
I would second.
Going back to the maker of the motion, would you like to speak to your motion? Member Klein, did you want to speak to it?
I already did.
Okay. Member Bogus, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, ma'am. I would just go back to the words age appropriate. I promised I would argue this point, and the point is that when words like age appropriate are in, it defaults to the educator's internal bias, and there is believed that it can be very subjective with that at hand.
Okay, is there any other, seeing no other lights? Still confused what I'm reading.
Just the column E, right? Are we getting that right? So column E is what we read as the motion?
Well, I think she's supposed to copy it over to E when I make the motion, but D is what it would, actually, I'm.
Correct.
C is where the deletions are, that's what you said. and
So D is-
where the
D is your
additions are.
motion.
So I didn't add anything, I simply deleted that mastery of age appropriate. Sorry, I didn't design this. I know she tried really hard to design it in a way that makes sense, but it's still a little confusing.
Okay, so
So
quite
the
frankly,
only part that it takes out is mastery of age appropriate in those numbers that are listed in lines 7, 8, and 9.
these sections, right, Patty? Striking this language in those.
Those lines.
That's reflected in E, I believe.
The problem is, I do not have an E column on this to read.
Well, doesn't E strikes?
E is blank.
Why is your E blank?
I don't, okay, here it
E
is.
says strike.
Okay. Is it line 7, 8, and 9?
It's probably just easiest to read what's in the blue column.
Only doing line 7. Okay. Yes, those are all the
7, 8, and
numbers.
9.
You're doing
Well, let's
7?
see. 7, 8, and 9, it takes out mastery of age appropriate, but they didn't, I think you forgot to strike it out on lines 8 and 9. Mastery of age appropriate, I guess it's just on line 7 that it wasn't stricken out.
So it's batch 14.
Batch 14
Okay.
strikes mastery of age appropriate in all of those
All right,
areas.
got it. Okay, so the motion on the floor is motion 14. It's a batch motion that includes P3R1, P3R2, P3R3, P4R1, P4R2, P4R3, KR2, KR3, 1R2, 1R3, 2R2, 2R3, 3R2, 3R3, 4R3, 5R3. It strikes mastery of age appropriate.
Okay, Moss,
No.
sorry. Wood,
No.
Straight,
No.
Rill,
No.
Norton? No. Lear?
No.
Hymus? Hart?
No.
Green?
Yes.
Earl? No. Davis?
No.
Klein?
Yes.
Booth?
No.
And Bogus?
No.
That one had 2.
Motion fails with 12 opposed. Next motion, Member Wood.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to delete seminal U.S. documents of historical and literary significance in the strand, reading strand from preschool through second grade.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, would you like to speak to your motion?
I'm just concerned that we're developmentally appropriate language for our children, and I think by age 8 or 9 that we can start incorporating that in a meaningful way, but prior to that, I think we're.
Okay. Thank you. Member Lear?
No, I'm.
Okay. Member Bogus?
So I think when we, again, I don't like the words age appropriate. I agree with my peers on that. I think that when we talk about age appropriate, the instruction needs to be academically sound and at grade level. The documents themselves can be read by any adult. And so there's a lot of teaching that goes on, including those documents, that you don't actually put the declaration in front of a student, but you can teach about it using and including it without it being inappropriate for the grade level content.
Okay. Seeing no other lights to this amendment, the amendment, restating the amendment, the motion is delete seminal U.S. documents of history and literary significance in grades pre-K through 2. Let's vote.
Bogus. This would be to strike.
No.
Booth? It's to strike the link.
It's to strike, in restating the motion, it's to strike, quote, seminal U.S. documents of historical and literary significance in K through 2nd.
Or pre through.
I'm sorry, pre through 2nd.
Oh, because it's combined.
To strike,
Pre through.
to take out.
Okay. Klein?
Klein?
No.
Davis?
Yes.
Earl is no. Green?
No.
Hart?
No.
Hymus? No. Lear?
Yes.
Norton?
Yes.
Rill?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
And Moss?
No.
6, 7, I have 7 yeses. So that's, so then it fails.
The motion fails with 7 yeses and also 7 noes. All right, next motion is,
I will.
Got deleted.
right, Member Lear?
I have a motion?
No, you were next, and then you, okay, you have a motion?
Yes, I
Oh, I thought you were asking. Okay, state your motion, please.
I move that, I think this is a substitute motion to the one on the table.
So the one on the table is still Member Booth.
I make a substitute motion that the board passes the pre through K section of the standard
So
as written from the committee
So-
and as amended it now.
I'm seeking a clarification. We have a section of pre through 3, P through 4, and kindergarten. Are you saying all 3 of those sections?
Say pre through K. Pre-K. 3, isn't that the one we're on now?
Okay.
It would have to be an amendment. It can't be a
All right.
substitute motion because that would replace the original motion.
Which is.
Point
which is
of,
fine.
point of order.
Instead of,
You would have to motion to.
Hold
di-
on, hold
you
on,
would have to
hold
motion
on.
to divide.
Hold on.
so is it an amendment or? I don't
Okay,
care. Tell me
so
what it is.
the motion,
You know what I want to do.
excuse me, the motion on the table is to approve all of them. So, AAG Quisenberry, what Member Lear is attempting to do is to change the motion to a section of the motion.
Right, so,
It's a motion
Yeah,
to
so-
divide.
so you're asking whether that is, it should be characterized as a motion to amend or a substitute motion?
That is correct. Or to divide.
We did one
Boy, it
before,
doesn't
just
seem
last-
like
I know
a
we did.
substitute motion because that would be something different than what's,
There's,
But I think we,
Point of order, there's no such thing as a substitute motion. You can
Okay,
only
never mind. I think I know what I want to do.
amend
Call the question.
to
I want to
substitute.
call the question.
Previous question?
Can we call the
No,
question
okay,
again?
never mind. No, Sybil. She
You
misled
could-
me.
you
Member
could
Lear,
characterize
do you have a motion?
I do. I just don't know what it's called.
A motion
Okay.
to amend. I think
It's a
it's
motion to
amend.
amend the motion that, and a motion to amend because it's changing
Piece of Randy's.
a piece of it's changing
Gotcha.
Randy, Member Booth's amendment. What does your motion change?
And it would move that the board pass the pre-3 through K.
grade.
Up till first grade, pre-3 through K.
So for clarification for the board and for the people watching, what sections of this document does that include? Is there a member of staff that could?
Hold that. Yeah.
For,
Everything,
I think clarification,
everything through kindergarten.
Through kindergarten or
no.
to kindergarten?
Through first grade.
Okay, up to first grade.
The question is the standard. It's a motion to divide.
No, we're changing. Member,
Motion. If
Deputy Superintendent Norman.
yeah, for clarification, as I'm trying to write the motion, this is what I have so far. So any amendments, please let me know what that means. So right now I have Board Member Lear to amend the motion to pass pre-3 through kindergarten standards as written. Pre-3 means pre-3 down here at the tab, pre-4, and kindergarten. So do I need to write out pre-3, pre-4, and kindergarten
No, the
standards?
original motion was to approve all of them. So however the maker of the motion wanted to break them up, that's fine. I just wanted everyone to follow along on the document.
Yes.
And know where we're,
Yes.
okay?
So I don't-
Is it point of order? We've
Yeah.
got Member Klein first.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
You had said you had a point of order, so I'm returning to your point of
Well,
order.
it should be a motion, because the main motion was the full standards, it would need to be a motion to divide into sections. Just like if we had, like when we had motion 5 and 6 accidentally put together, she motioned to divide to make them separate.
That's,
If the main motion is the full standards, you would need a motion to divide.
I think that would be accurate. I think, would that be
Well,
accurate that you
he
would divide
didn't-
and accept each of those sections?
yes, we are buying some time. As operating as chair, I think we could. They were not in the original motion chunked in any way. So I think you could do both. I'm not sure that there's procedurally a difference between the two. That was a year ago.
A motion to divide has to be voted on,
So does the amendment. So does,
but the amendment goes straight to, do we approve
I
K
see
through
what you're
3?
saying.
But a motion
Okay,
to divide has
all
to be
right.
voted on
So
by
we do,
itself.
AAG Quisenberry, we do need a ruling on that because it would change what we would do next. Is it more appropriate to be a divided motion, or is it more appropriate to be a amended motion?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for this. The motion to divide does make a little more sense to me. It seems a little
Okay.
cleaner to do that way, I guess.
That's fine, and that's the safer way to go, because it does require a vote, where an amended motion does not. So the motion on the floor is to divide the motion. And the motion was going to be divided to pass P through kindergarten?
It's to divide into sections,
Yes, to divide.
not to pass a
First, we
section.
have to
Right.
vote to divide. then-
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay,
It's
sorry.
dividing, okay, there we go.
Dividing, but member Lear decides what segments she wants to divide.
That's what I'm restating. I'm restating her motion to divide. Her motion is to divide P through kindergarten from the rest of the standards. That's what we're voting on. Do we have a second?
Motion to divide doesn't require a two-thirds vote, does it?
No. Second. It requires a majority.
We've got a second.
We've got a second. All right. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I think this is, we're redoing the work of the staff and the writing committee, and it feels like obstruction to me, and I feel like we need to move on. And if this is a more acceptable way to do it than passing them out generally, then let's start with section by section.
Okay, thank you. Member Bogus?
I'd just like to speak against the motion. There are multiple facets of these standards that in order to remain vertically aligned, we need them all in one. And I think, we've been championing vertical and horizontal alignment. And if we section or partition them off, then we've actually insulted the process.
Okay.
And so I would argue against the motion.
All right. Member Davis?
Just a question, if we pass pre-3 and 4 and kindergarten, then can we later, if there is a language that needs to go vertically across, can we include that it be changed in pre-3, 4, and K?
I do not believe so, because we would have to reopen the standard. We would have to bring it back because we had passed that grade level.
So if a person that's on the winning side moves to bring it back to fix any vertical problems that may arise in the future, they could do that and fix the problem.
They could,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay.
The motion just could not, after they're passed, any motions moving forward could not include something that's already been passed. Okay? The motion on the floor is to divide everything below kindergarten and then
Because I have later motions.
below first. Thank you. We're ready to vote?
Sorry, I'm on. Bogus.
The motion is to divide, no.
Is to divide.
Booth.
Yes.
Klein.
No.
Davis.
No.
Earl, yes. Green.
No.
Hart.
No.
Okay. Hymus. Yes. Lear.
Yes.
Norton.
Yes.
Rill.
Yes.
Straight.
Can I? Point of order.
I don't see.
I meant yes, and I said no.
Okay.
Okay. Cindy. Okay. Wood.
Yes.
And Moss. I don't have Straight's vote. Was there a vote?
Member Straight?
I think he's out of range.
He's out of range. Okay. Member Straight is now excused. Oh, okay. Thank you. That passes with 9 yeses. Motion has been divided. We'll go back to you.
I move what, I call a question on the motion that.
Well, you can't call a question. There is no motion. You need to make a motion. Bring a motion to the floor, please.
Okay, I move that the board pass out the P3 through.
Do we have a second? Any comments to the, okay, Member Bogus?
I don't think I have.
Okay. Member Davis?
Yes.
No, do you have a comment? We're making comment.
Thought we were voting, sorry.
Not
You
yet.
went Bogus, Davis, I don't know, we're
Well,
close to the same
The
order.
problem is you never turn yours off, so I don't know what order. Go ahead.
So I would go to previous question. I still have amendments to this section.
Previous question? Okay, so is there a second to previous question?
Yes.
Okay, we are now voting on previous question, which is
your
the motion that's on the floor. Yeah, did you mean to do that?
Okay. let's vote.
It now belongs to the floor. It is now on the floor. We need to vote. Sorry.
So, okay, start at the bottom. All right,
yeah.
Moss, previous question, right?
No.
Leanne?
Yes.
Wood, sorry.
Yes.
Straight? Rill? Yes. Norton? Yes. Lear?
Yes.
Hymus? Yes. Hart?
No.
Green? No. Earl is no. Davis?
Yes.
Klein?
No.
Randy, Booth?
Yes.
And Bogus?
No.
Call the question is two.
Call the questions 2/3.
So your motion's on the floor, and so open for debate.
It's now open for debate. Would anyone like to, hold on. Member Klein,
So we're debating on
the motion.
the motion.
Yes.
Okay, which is to pass P3 through kindergarten.
Yes,
I
So,
would
point of
vote-
order, I'm sorry.
yes. We voted to end debate. That failed, so now we're back to debate.
Yes.
There was a
So I
motion
thought
on the-
someone called the previous question and that it was on.
We did, and it failed.
So previous question requires 2/3 if there are still amendments to be heard.
And it failed because of 2/3. So
Okay.
previous
Oh,
question
so- okay.
failed, so now we're
I-
back to debate. We
Oh,
aren't
I
going
misheard.
straight to a vote.
I apologize,
Yeah.
thank you.
So we have discussion.
Amendment to the motion.
Amendment to the motion, and go ahead.
And I would,
Staff, are you ready for the amendment?
yes. So
Just
motion 8.
Hold on, Member Klein.
Okay.
She's
So
not prepared
what
to
I-
take your motion.
What I have on here is this motion just fail? The member Lear's motion?
We did not vote on the motion
Okay,
yet.
So right now I need to write one underneath it that says amendment to the
Ye-
amendment.
Correct. The only thing we voted on was a previous question. That failed, so we're back to the underlying motion. The underlying motion is Member Lear's, and it's back to discussion. When it was back to discussion, Member Klein now has an amendment to it, and as soon as you're ready, she's going to state it.
Yes.
You
So-
ready? Okay.
My amendment to the motion is my motion number 8. So I move to strike speaking and add correctly hold pencil or other writing implement. And add share visually represented ideas with others as found in P3W 1 through 3A, P3W4AB, P3W5. And that, yes, I think that continues, that covers, yes, lines 21, 22, and 23.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there discussion to the motion?
I would like to speak to that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, I haven't been doing that, but it's important that in this strand, this standard on writing, especially for our youngest, that they be taught the correct way to hold a pencil or a writing implement. That was just not here anywhere that teaches kids how to write a book, but nowhere does it teach them how to properly hold a pencil, which is very important.
Okay, any other, Member Bogus?
Chair, may we add?
Yes.
Just as staff, this is already covered in other standards in preschool. It's just not in the ELA standards. So they're covered in the preschool standards, like how to hold a pencil and those pieces. So
Okay.
if we want to pull those up to help with the conversation, you all can decide. We just wanted you to know
This
this is available.
Okay.
This is the reading, or the writing standards, so.
It's just in a different section
It
because
is-
it's fine motor skills in preschool.
So
It should be both.
so you're still making the motion
Yes.
knowing that it's there? Okay.
Yep.
So
Is there any member that wants to see that? They've offered to pull it up. I don't see any lights. Member Bogus?
I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment.
Okay, that's in order. What is your amendment to the amendment? Hold on, let's make sure our scribe is ready. No, we don't.
Yeah, this is,
Okay, okay. So this is the
This is just
amendment, and this is the amendment.
I'll be Robert's Rules expert.
Okay, are you ready, Deputy Norman?
I'm ready.
Thanks.
So I would move to keep all the language intact as written and move to strike the words age appropriate and insert the words academically focused throughout. Well, I would do it throughout all the standards, but it seems to me that we are focused on pre-K, pre-3K.
So what
and
is your, so your motion is to, Deputy Superintendent, do you have that? So the amendment to the amendment is keep all of the language intact as written, striking the words age
Oh,
appropriate.
I apologize to you. When I said keep all the language intact, I didn't want to change the amended language or the initial language. I just wanted to add on to it to strike the words age appropriate and insert academically focused throughout the standards, like academically focused in quotation marks.
Where does it say age appropriate?
So what it would be is instead of, well, it's specifying that keep all the language of the amendment intact
Yes.
and add,
Yeah, so mine would read very similar to Member Klein's. I think in row 18, I think it is, where Member Klein says move to approve pre-K, like all of that copy paste, and then say, and striking the words age appropriate and insert academically focused
Row 18.
throughout all the pre-K standards.
Where does it say?
thank you. No more caffeine. Deputy Norman, will you signal when you're ready? Okay. The amendment to the amendment on the floor, would you like to speak to your motion? Member
So,
Bacchus?
I don't think that's, so if I were to read it out loud, I would say I move to approve the pre-3 kindergarten standards as, with the following amendments, read Member Klein's amendment. In addition, strike the words age appropriate and replace
Okay.
them with academically focused throughout the standards.
So because she made Member Lears is now off the table. It is now only, she made an amendment to the amendment. Oh, are you approving that with that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so you were adding on to Member Lears' amendment.
No, I'm not adding on to Member Lears. Mine is not an addition to.
You're-
It's an
yes.
amendment. Amending
Member Bogus, does that make sense?
hers with this new language.
She is not moving Member Lears' language. She is moving.
amending her language.
Okay, so when you said it, you said you read Member Lears. You didn't mean to do that.
No.
Okay.
I just want
Restate your
to-
motion, please.
The new motion to your amendment to the amendment.
Yes, that's what I said to begin with, was the amendment to the amendment. Right?
Okay. Okay,
Sorry. I'm trying
need a
really hard
second.
here to track.
I know. Do we have a second? Okay. Patty, Deputy Superintendent Norman, do you have a clarification?
Clarification is, the original is Board Member Lears, then we had Board Member Klein's amendment, and now we have Board Member Bogus's friendly amendment to Board Member Klein's amendment. Therefore, I wrote it as keep all the language of Board Member Klein's amendment intact as written, striking the words age appropriate and replacing with academically focused in all standards. Is that correct?
It is, it doesn't include, Member Klein's amendment does not include Member Lears' language.
Correct. Board Member Lear's language is at the very beginning of this. It's what I'm going to be highlighting right now. And so that was the original motion. And then we have the amendment, which is next. And so I didn't put Board Member Lear's in Board Member
Okay,
Bogus's.
so it is not a friendly amendment, so it's a separate amendment. It needs to be voted on separately. So is there a second to Member Bogus's? Emily Green? Member Green, did you second Member Bogus's? Okay, there is a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I just would keep going back to the fact that, it's been argued to me and that when we have words that are nebulous, one's internal bias and the predominant culture kicks in, and then it creates something that is no longer standardized. And if we want standards, we need to come back to words that are not nebulous and ill-defined. We need to not be ambiguous. And so I think academically focused is a better way to state that, and it prevents one's bias from entering the academic instruction process.
Thank you. Member Davis? Thank you. Member Wood?
So in my understanding, Member Kleins has struck the word age appropriate, so there's nothing to replace. So is she actually,
Member Klein's was to strike speaking and insert correctly hold pencil or other writing implement and share visually represented ideas with others.
Right, there's no age, so down below on line 23,
Oh,
she no longer has, that motion no longer contains age appropriate to strike and replace.
okay. That is clear. That is true. So that is actually a separate amendment. Yeah, I think age appropriate has already been voted on. So we,
Age appropriate was done in a batch motion.
in a batch motion, so you can't be brought back.
Amendment for all of the standards.
This is not for all of the standards, this is just.
Yeah, but that was included in the batch motion. Correct?
But the replacement language was situation specific.
But it was in there, so it's already been voted on. Yes,
Just for clarification, my understanding was the first batch motion was to change age appropriate. Board Member Bogus's motion is to change age appropriate to academically focused, so I think the two may be different.
okay, okay. Because the amendment, so age appropriate is still in there, and now you're changing. You are.
You're taking it out. She's taking it out because it. it's
Yes,
still
you are
in the
striking it. Okay.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
Just quickly, I'm sorry. You're talking about just this one place, not throughout the document, or you're? Because if we talked about it, we voted on it already, and now we're talking about it again.
Well, it's two different. The first time we restate that. The first time the motion was to,
Patty Norman, the first time the motion was to strike the word age appropriate.
Right.
This time it's to strike and replace with
Okay.
academically focused.
And that would be throughout the document, not.
no, this is not a
just
batch motion.
That was the question. Thank you.
This is a singular motion.
It's for the pre-3 through K standards. Yes.
Oh,
Well, it says.
you
in-
need to add that because you are,
Yeah, it is a part of the motion that's currently up there. Yes, because, oh, that's right, because Lears isn't a part of it, so she would be
Lears
amending.
is no
yeah,
longer a
correct.
part of it, and what Member Klein did was replaced it, so it's no longer grouped like that. Member Klein made a motion simply on those three. So are you including those three in your motion, Member Bogus?
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody clear that these three that are indicated, well, I'm going to read it in a minute. So the motion on the table is keep all of the language of Board Member Klein's amendment intact as written, striking the words age appropriate and replacing with academically focused in all P3, P4, and kindergarten standards. That has been seconded. Do you have comment to that motion? Okay, when we're ready to vote.
Okay, we are.
I'm sorry, hold. I'm sorry, I didn't see your
It's
light.
okay. I just want to go on record to clarify my vote. When I'm voting to keep age appropriate in the document, I think we may be looking at it differently, but I think all of this should be academically focused. But when I think of age appropriate, I think of 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, appropriate, levels of text and things like that for maturity levels, not necessarily like Lexile levels and abilities. I think abilities can vary across ages. So I just want to make that clear with my votes, that I don't see age appropriate as a static term that can be up for subjectivity for ability or present levels of performance.
May I
Okay.
respond to that?
Member, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so what my understanding is that under the ideals of neurodiversity, that different cultures gravitate toward and assimilate and gather information differently. So then the idea would be that because neurodiversity exists, age appropriate then varies from culture to culture, and the internal bias of the educator kicks in, making that person's version of age appropriate what they default to in this language. And so removing age appropriate makes it, and providing the language academically focused, removes the bias of the educator from the equation.
Are we ready to vote? Okay, here goes the voting. We know what we're voting on, right? Okay. Moss?
No.
Wood?
No.
Straight?
No.
Rill?
No.
Norton? No. Lear?
No.
Hymus? No. Hart?
No.
Green? No. Earl's no. Davis?
No.
Klein?
Yes.
Booth?
No.
And Bogus?
Yes.
Okay.
That motion fails with 12 opposed. That returns us back to Member Klein's amendment.
I have a motion.
Okay. Is it pertaining to this one?
It's a substitute motion.
Substitute,
Yep.
okay?
I have a substitute motion to.
Point of order. There's no such thing as a substitute motion. It's a motion to amend, and you can substitute this for that as part of that amending process. But there is no such thing as a substitute motion. It's a motion to amend, substituting language.
Let's get a ruling.
Yeah,
We've got an amendment.
yeah. Member AAG Quisenberry?
So what I hear is you're substituting essentially over her motion to amend with a new, it's an amendment, but we're calling it a substitute motion. So
Okay.
it is your second level.
It is a-
amendment.
Right, so it's an amendment.
It's an amendment, but we're calling it a substitute motion.
Because
So I think that's-
it,
But that's not
There-
correct.
if you're,
It's not correct to do it that way.
if you're replacing more than 2 lines, then it's
That's right.
referred to as an amendment that is a substitute. That substitutes language.
Yes,
It is still an amendment, it just substitutes language.
yes. No such thing as
Okay.
substitute motion.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to amend/substitute
Right,
motion
amend.
to approve pre-3 and pre-4 standards as written.
The motion, do we have a second?
That's the same, that's previous question.
No, it's not.
Nope, it's
No,
different.
because you wiped it off the board with your amendment. This one does not include kindergarten.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
right.
it's a different, they aren't including kindergarten in that. Okay, so is there a second?
You got a second.
Okay, second, would you like to speak to your motion?
I think you'd have to do a previous question and then motion to divide the previous question.
Let me think.
Motion to divide, amend previous question.
So what, I just want to, I'm just speaking out loud. So we've got sitting there the motion for pre through K, right?
No, that motion was, that one,
Right.
that was,
Non-inclusive.
that's in the past.
Okay. But we did agree to divide it out per,
But she wants to divide it further, which means she'd have to go to
Okay.
previous motion and divide again, or make a motion to divide again.
Okay.
So as I understand, so member Real had a motion to divide to just focus on
No, is that a motion to divide?
No,
Well, I'm just trying to understand the history here. So member Real was P3, P4 kindergarten, and then member Klein was to amend that, and now we're getting into her specific pre-3 amendments. And then there was a motion to amend that with member
Correct.
Hodges that failed, so we're back to the motion to amend on
Correct.
P3.
Correct?
And now we have a substitute to look only at pre-3 and pre-4. And so to me, that's kind of a new motion.
The question is, does the underlying motion, the motion to divide previously, does that still exist, or is that wiped?
No, well, that's done because now we're just focusing on P3 only.
Okay.
So we're in that
So-
lane with an amendment and then now a substitution that's on
Okay.
top of the amendment.
So Member Klein, when you made an amendment, you went off of, you went over Lear's amendment, so that no longer lays there. That's no longer out there. So your amendment is just, where is it? Your amendment focuses on this, and so there is no underlying motion that has any sort of division.
I think that's it.
No.
Yours is still sitting there.
It died because, right, and then she,
Okay.
She moved to pass it out, but failed.
And it failed, yes.
Okay.
You actually got to the end line. Sorry.
and so then we, she amended it. There was not a vote on it. She amended it.
Right, that's,
Maybe it's still there.
I thought yours was
it's
still
there. We haven't
Natalie's
voted
was-
on it. She made an amendment to yours, and then there was amendment there. We voted
Okay,
on
so
that, but
maybe
it didn't
mine is
pass.
to just
So
call
we're-
the question
Natalie's
the
is still
original
sitting
motion?
there, right?
Natalie's is sitting on top of Carol, and member Klein's is sitting
So we'd need to
on
vote on
member
that
Lear's.
for another amendment to come to
we
this
can't
one.
just call the question the original motion.
You can call the question at any point.
There's
It
an
has to be to the
amendment.
amendment.
Yeah, there's an amendment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can call the question on.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to, unless there is an objection, we are going to take discussion on the amendment that's on the table, which is Member Klein's.
Okay,
Okay?
that's where we're at.
Member Klein has spoken to our motion. Is there any other conversation? Any other comments? Let's go to a vote. Do you need, I'll restate the motion. The motion on the floor is strike speaking and add, quote, correctly hold pencil or other writing implement, share visually represented ideas with others, P3, W1 through 3A, P3, W4AB, P3, W5, 5,
Yeah.
is on the floor. Let's vote.
Okay, we're gonna start with Moss.
No.
Wood?
7.
No.
Real?
No.
Straight?
No.
Norton?
No.
Lear? No. Hymus? Hart?
No.
Green? No. Earl is no. Davis?
No.
Klein?
Yes.
Booth?
No.
And Bogus?
No.
Okay,
All right, now we are, that motion fails with 13 noes. Now back to Member Lear. Your motion. Yes. No, are there any Member Klein, are you speaking to this motion?
I will amend the motion.
Is that the first? Or I mean, the second?
It's a First Amendment.
It's a First Amendment.
But she amended hers. She amended.
Mine failed, so I
No,
went
no,
back
no,
to the
it failed.
original motion, so I'm amending the original motion.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Well, Carol's motion is still pending. She did
Yeah, it is,
one.
and she can amend it.
So she can amend it. There's no.
But she already amended it once.
Similar to when you.
Okay, all right. 2 in a row.
Okay, so-
All right, thank you. Member Klein, your amendment.
My motion is batch 7, P3SL1A, substituting it for P4SL1 to say, practice listening to others, discussing and staying on a topic, and taking turns speaking.
Point of clarification. We're on tab 2, row 21.
It's actually row 13. It's hidden after motion 6. It got bunched in with it. It's at the end of motion 6. You'll see motion 7.
Thank you, ma'am.
Motion 7.
Line 13.
Line 13.
In the blue.
Okay.
Oh, she just highlighted it in green.
Yeah, it's in green. So the motion, do we have a second?
I need to read it, I'm so sorry.
Okay, the motion number 7 is a batch amendment. It's for P3SL1A, practice listening to others. Is that not it?
That's it.
Yeah. Practice listening to others, discussing and staying on a topic, and taking turns speaking. It's also P4SL1. So is that correct, staff? Is that those 2 motions, and that's why it's a batch? And that's your motion? Okay, is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, there is a second. Is there, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, it just vertically aligns better because P3 was actually more complex than P4.
Okay, okay. Did you want to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Okay. Member Moss, Chair Moss, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just a question. Is there no striking on this one then, just addition?
Looking to see if they're, yeah, no, it's just,
Okay, seeing no other lights, let's vote.
All right, we are starting at top. Bogus.
Yes, yeah, hold on, that's not.
I'm sorry, our scribes need a minute. Did you have a?
Yeah, for clarification
Sure.
for Chair Moss's question, it was standard P3SL-1, correct?
And P4.
And okay. So with that, it is striking the with prompting and support. And then it starts with participate in conversations with peers and adults. Then it strikes begin to recognize. I can pull that over. There's.
Wait, isn't that motion 6?
Yeah.
So motion 7, under motion 7, it just has that.
I just don't know if she pulled it over. Hang on a second.
P3SL, okay, I'll copy the standard over, yeah, because that is the standard, right?
Right, well, she forgot, it didn't get copied over, right, so. It's- Oh my gosh, what happened here?
Deleting and adding.
It's not
Z. It will.
I don't know if I'm looking at the right thing.
Actually, like in the box, yeah, and now it's paste.
Eight.
But now I have to say what it's
Where
doing,
did it
right?
go?
It's not doing support, it's gonna be the same.
I gotta strike that out, right?
No, because it didn't pass earlier, so that's not on the table anymore.
Participate, okay.
So get rid of the double participate.
Motion 7.
So there's what it should be. I think she's just amending the first part. Oh, no, she's amending the
Motion
second
7
part.
doesn't work.
Because she's adding. Okay,
No,
so
it's
she's
not.
adding
It's
this,
just the
the discussion, she's
prompting
getting rid of that.
I
So
said
this is
something.
all, this is all red?
Motion 7.
Well, it's new
Prompting
and.
support.
So
So it's red. Red is
I
adding.
don't think this is.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, here it is. Just, it's for SL1. Okay, practice listening to others.
Sarah,
So
where's
it's
more
follow
towards nine?
agreed upon rules for discussion, such as listening to others, staying on topic, and taking turns speaking. So, yeah. So it
Oh,
did
wait,
get
no, no,
changed
no,
a
no.
little bit.
So we should have gone.
Well, I'm just finding it on here, so.
And then I can see.
I just had to go find
So
it
here's what we
online,
did,
so-
so that's what I did too. So I brought over P3SL1.
This is P4 SL1.
So we're, so I thought we were,
And then,
I thought we were
well,
in
like
P3.
they're flipping. So it's, the language changed slightly. Follow agreed upon rules for discussion.
Are we not in?
Let's take 5. We'll make the unofficial saunter an official saunter,
So it's
since we're sauntering anyway. Let's take 5. Feel free to roam.
Need to resume action on the motion that's on the floor. Can we're missing an entire half of the room?
Okay, let's vote.
No.
I get everybody ready.
We'll do 6.
You're gonna go with this, go there and come back. Okay.
No, you can sit over here and I would have said the same thing, mostly because I like levity. Rooms need levity, otherwise we all get little.
Okay, we have a motion on the,
Yes.
do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes. Motion 7, I brought forward. It's just it's on the screen now, all of the details, so you can see it. It just didn't get copied over the first time. So
Okay.
in column C, you can see what was deleted for P3 SL1 and P4 SL1. You can see they're very, very similar. In column D, it shows what was added. You'll see that 4 is slightly more complex than 3 for the vertical alignment purposes.
So just a note for our board members, this does jump into 4, but because the 2 are similar, we're batching them together unless somebody makes a motion. So I said we were going to go by grade. This does not go by grade. This includes one in the next grade, but because they're similar, they're grouped unless somebody chooses to do otherwise. Was there a second on that? Let me just confirm. Okay, you spoke to your motion. Are there, Member Bogus, do you
I
have?
just have a clarifying question. Okay. So, column C, so the words begin to recognize rules for discussion has already been struck by the committee. Is that a truthful
No,
statement?
those are my strikes, and in the red in column D are my additions. And the strikes, the stricken language in C is taken out in D, so you can just see what it would read with the new additions.
Okay, so then I would like to speak to the motion.
Okay.
In particular, because how do you measure whether or not a child, quote, begins to recognize? How is that measurable? And I think if we're going to measure kids' achievement, it has to be clear. And so it has to be measurable and achievable. Those are pieces of language we use all the time. And so I would argue in favor of this motion because the motion itself can be measured.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments to the motion? Seeing no comments to the motion, I will read the motion. Motion 7 is a batch motion. Says amend P3 SL1A, practice listening to others, discussing and staying on topic, and taking turns speaking. Also P4 SL1.
It should read what's in column D. The motion, to
okay.
be clear.
Okay,
We
so.
should use the language in
all
column
right.
D.
I will reread the motion. The motion on the table that has been seconded is and we're going to vote on, is P3 SL1 with prompting and support, participate. hold on, yeah. The computer.
So, motion to read.
Participate in conversations with peers and adults. A, practice listening to others discussing and taking turns speaking. B, follow one-step directions. Disappeared. And then P4, SL1 will read, participate in conversations with peers and adults using age-appropriate vocabulary on topics and texts. A, practice listening to others, discussing and staying on topic, and taking turns speaking. Let's vote.
All right, Bogus,
Yes.
Booth,
No.
Klein,
Yes.
Davis,
No.
Earl is yes, Green,
Yes.
Hart,
No.
Hymus? No. Lear?
No.
Norton?
No.
Rill?
No.
Straight?
No.
Wood?
No.
Moss?
No.
That motion fails with 10 opposed. Next amendment, Member Norton.
Question first, what
Sure.
motion is on the table?
The motion that exists on the table is Member Booth's original motion, and I will get confirmation from AAG that we divided the motion?
Divided.
What's the underlying motion?
Let's see, underlying motion was to pass P3, P4 kindergarten.
Okay. The underlying motion is to pass whatever he just said.
P3, P4 kindergarten.
Okay, and I need to amend that to say that I would move to pass P3, P4 kindergarten as it was sent out of standards and assessment.
That would be a,
Previous question.
no, that's a substitute, because that changes more than 2 lines of the original amendment.
Well, only thing I thought it was adding in, it doesn't matter to me.
Wouldn't it,
But all I added in was as it was passed in standards and assessment, but that's more than 5 words.
Is it necessary?
I believe that's a previous question.
Okay.
Oh,
As it
no.
standard-
So
So how is that different from the earlier?
They're
That is
at-
what it is. Yeah, that is the motion as
that's the
divided,
motion,
right?
as
That's-
divided.
Right?
Well, she's amending it to add multiple,
Well,
other
that-
grades.
I think, if I could, I think Chair Booth's, well, go ahead.
No,
See-
Chair Booth is not, that's,
No,
it's,
his was to approve as passed out of committee. That was then
Right.
divided. And so the pre-3 through K retained the same language to pass as it came out of committee, but limited in scope, right? We then have amendments to that failed, and so we're back to that. And so this has the
Yes.
effect of calling the question on what was
no,
already the
she's,
motion, isn't
she
it?
is saying that, she's going to the original P through, but she's also adding another grade, she's adding, you just added.
Oh, you're adding grade?
Yeah, she's adding kindergarten and first, I think, and she said, or just kindergarten? You said kindergarten and first. And she's saying, as came out of committee.
That was Member Booth's original, but you're adding a grade.
Can I read you the current motion? I think the only thing she's adding is first grade.
Yes.
So it says move to approve the pre-K 3 through kindergarten. In this case, it would be through first grade as written. And as written is intended with the standards and assessment committee.
Okay, so. Oh, because no amendments have passed. I see. I see. Because no amendments have passed, then it's not substantial enough to be a substitute. But it doesn't matter because a substitute would do the same thing. We're just going to vote on it. Okay. It's not a call to question because it adds an additional grade. So it is it's an amendment. It's not a call to question. So we now have, do we have a second? Yes. Okay. The motion on the floor has been seconded. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, I think we've spoken enough.
Okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the motion?
I would like to make an amendment.
Line next.
Hold on. Member Earl, are you next?
I'm not.
Cindy, are you, Member Davis, do you have something for this amendment?
I
That she is,
moved to call the question.
okay,
on this
so
amendment.
the amendment that's on the table is Member Norton's. You're now calling the question. It does not need a,
It does need a second.
it needs a second, but it needs 2/3. So there's a second. Now let's vote. Oh, we're
Bogus?
calling the question.
Bogus.
No.
Booth?
Yes.
Klein?
Wait, point of order.
Yeah.
I moved to amend the amendment.
But you weren't next in line.
Oh. Okay.
We've got.
No.
Davis?
Yes.
Earl? We're adding first grade.
You're voting on calling the question,
know.
not, oh, I see.
No. Okay, Emily Green, sorry. Hart?
Yes.
Hymus?
Yes.
Lear?
Yes.
Norton?
Yes.
Rill?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Moss?
No.
2, 3, 4, 5. So. it's not- Call the question does not have. You have to have
We need
10, there's
2/3,
only
which means we need 10, and how many are there? There are only 9. The motion to call the question fails. The underlying motion that's on the table is Member Norton's. Then
It failed, there were only 9 yeses.
only 9 yeses. Then we go to Member Bogus.
Can you tell me, just for a point of clarity, what is the motion on the table?
The motion on the table is Member Norton's to approve preschool through first grade as submitted, that came out, as presented out of standards and assessment.
Is that the underlying motion?
That is the
Or is
motion
that the
that's on the
motion?
table.
Well, yes, but is it the underlying motion
is
or the
the-
amended motion?
That
It's
is the amended motion.
Okay, I will wait until the underlying motion is at hand. Thank you.
Okay, so we have an amended motion. You are either speaking to the motion or making another motion.
I'm amending.
You're amending the motion. Okay, what is your amendment?
My amendment is motion 10, to strike and transpose the order of tasks for a more natural progression in P4W 1, 2, 3. Just transposes the order.
Okay, hold on, we need a clarification from from Deputy Norman.
Just as clarification, that means we have completed pre-3 and we are now on pre-4 tab for everyone following along, correct?
Thank you.
Okay, so on our pre-4 tab, it is then motion 10. And so that would be line 21 through 23. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second on the motion on the table? The motion is made, second was made. Would you like to speak to your motion now, Member Klein?
It just transposes it so that it's in a more, it just shows a more natural progression. Instead of
Okay.
putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, the motion on the table, any, Member Moss, do you have a question? Chair Moss, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I try really hard to read those numbers, and I'm learning that I just need to make an eye appointment. But I need to know the row that we are on, please.
We are on row 21.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep. On row 21, it says motion 10 to amend strike and transpose the order of tasks in P4, W1, 2, and 3.
So it's actually rows 21, 22, and 23.
Oh, it's a batch motion then, okay. It is a motion to strike and transpose the order of tasks in, oh, it's still the same motion. All right, let's vote.
Okay, what are we voting on again?
We
Okay.
are voting on lines 21 through 23.
Okay, Moss. Wood,
No.
Straight,
No.
Real? No. Norton? No. Lear?
No.
Hymus? Hart?
No.
Green?
Green?
Earl is no. Davis?
No.
Klein?
Yes.
Booth?
No.
And Bogus?
Yes.
Okay?
Okay. That fails with 12 opposed. Next amendment, Member Bogus?
Oh, I don't have an amendment. I'm so
Okay, next amendment, Member Reel?
Can I do a motion to substitute to pass P4? Or sorry, there's no, we're on 1, right? First grade?
No.
P4, sorry.
We
Yes.
have moved to
Okay,
P4.
yes, I
You're
make a
calling
motion
previous
P4.
question again.
Yeah.
No, it's a substitute motion.
A substitute motion to pass P4
Correct.
As-
Do we have a second?
written coming out of the committee.
Because, yes,
That's the question I just asked, was whether or not I could make a substitute motion, because we were not on the underlying motion, we're on an amended motion. So until we clear Member Norton's motion, we can't have a substitute motion because
No.
the motion is amended.
no, that motion got voted down. We just voted 12 against.
That was against the amendment.
Oh, that was against the amendment. But it got voted down with,
No.
No.
No, it
No,
didn't.
it did not get voted down.
Amended by hers.
it got amended. You amended it.
We're back to that motion.
So we're back to the
Yeah,
amended
so
motion over
the-
here.
The point of order is that we can't substitute an amended motion.
Okay.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
All right, you can.
Yes, you can.
So,
I've got chapter and verse here. if you want me to
so
quote it.
the question then is, Member Reel, are you making a amendment to Member Norton's correct, AAG, please,
I see it as Member Norton had the motion to amend.
Yes, she did.
And then Member Klein had the motion to amend that, and then
That's
that
correct.
just failed. So now we're on the motion to amend, and then Member Reel's doing her substitute motion, which
Okay.
is appropriate, I think. If
Okay.
you want to call it a motion to amend or motion to substitute, it's effectively, it's the same thing.
okay. All right. So the motion that's underlying is still Member Norton's motion. Member Reel, you were next. Do you have a substitute or an amendment? Do you have amendment?
My amendment is to, whatever
It's
it's
a
called.
motion to substitute is what it's called.
A motion to substitute,
Correct.
and it is to approve P4 as sent out of Standards and Assessment Committee.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. Is there,
Okay, so.
you have a point of order?
She's not adding language to the standards. She's simply basically going back to previous question to approve a certain thing instead
No.
of actual language.
She's actually
The standard.
substituting. Member Norton's motion was to, someone call, 3, 4, and she's now doing only 4, just P4. So
So she
she's,
could amend
So it's
that.
a
She's
motion to divide
amending.
again.
Yes.
No, it's it could be
No,
a motion to
she's
amend.
not
You could strike
divi-
the one and add the other in.
she's not dividing it because she's not even addressing it. She's just only doing, she's striking and only addressing P4.
Right, but the previous one had three different grades, right?
Right.
So she's technically asking to divide those three.
No, because there won't, with the way she's worded it, we will only be four. We will not be dividing it into anything. Am I? Because
Yes.
that would be, if you divide it, you're ending with multiple motions. She's actually only going after the P4, and she's disregarding the other ones. Does that make sense? She's not dividing it and then having each one. We're only going to vote on one. Does that make sense?
No, I think it's a motion to divide.
No,
if the
because she's
underlying-
not asking to consider the other grades that were in the original motion.
But we have to consider them at some point.
Yes.
Right, but that's not the one, that's not the motion she wants to make.
But we have to address them all at some point anyway, so if she wants to address one, we need to address them all. which
No,
means
then
divide.
somebody else can make a motion to continue to make amendments to those other
But
grades.
if it's part of one motion already, if we want to vote on it separately, we have to divide it out.
She doesn't
of
want to
that.
divide, she doesn't, she
But
wants to
it's already
own.
part of that. It's like you can't vote on it
AAG?
unless you divide it out from that.
AAG,
Yeah, so, yeah, she could do, but member Real can vote to pass kind of what, or she can move to substitute what she wants, and she's focusing only on P4. And so, yeah, that's how she styled her motion.
because theoretically, she could want to do an amendment on another, on P, one of the other ones.
But what I'm saying is that it's in a body of,
Right,
it's in a grouping right now, and if she wants to vote on that one separately, she has to divide it out from that grouping before she can vote.
Or
before we can vote
amend
on
the
that one.
language.
Or
to only
amend the
say-
language.
Right, I think you're right, Natalie. She could amend the language to only say the one, strike the others.
So it's a motion
Or
to
divide
divide.
it out. Well, it could be one or the other.
Yes,
But I guess
motion
what
to
she
div-
gotta
we have to
decide.
motion to divide and vote on that motion to divide before we can vote on just P4.
no, she is substituting a different, she is adjusting the underlying motion. She no longer wants to consider that motion. She wants to change the motion.
Ask Sarah, is that what you?
You can't, you can't change, you can't change the
I-
motion,
He
you
did.
can only
Just
amend the motion.
Okay, that's.
AAG,
Yes, ma'am.
So,
He's approved it.
you,
what,
you have to amend the language of the
Yeah,
motion.
I think the motion to substitute P4, as I've heard it now, I think that's fine. I don't think she has to do a motion to divide.
because she may not want to consider the other pieces of the
Yes.
original motion.
She
Correct.
she doesn't have to consider the other pieces to divide out.
We're going to end
can
up in
do
the same
either.
place.
She can do either.
Yes, and we're going to move forward. So the motion on the floor, was there a second? I'm sorry. Yes. Okay.
Point
Any
of
other?
order. I'm so sorry. And I like you a lot, but I'm going to appeal the decision of the chair.
You can appeal it. I am. Sure. The board can vote. What you're voting on is whether or not she can amend the motion so that the only thing that's being considered is P4, or if she has to divide it, which leaves the other motions, she's dividing them out.
Yes, so she's motioning to divide, because we have to vote on a motion to divide.
No, she.
That's
she can do
correct.
Either.
That is what we are voting on. So do we have a second for the appeal? Did I hear a second? Okay, Member Green seconded. So you are now voting whether or not she's going to divide it out, or if she's going to go ahead and amend.
We're voting on your decision.
Point of clarification.
Oh, okay.
Point of clarification.
You are voting whether or not that was a correct
You
interpretation.
chose to allow her to amend
I
the
did.
previous motion. So is that what we're voting on
We're
now?
voting
to
on
uphold
whether
that
or not
decision?
she can amend. You're right.
Thank you.
Whether
It's-
we agree with your ruling.
That is correct. That's all you're voting on. You're not voting on That's correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, we ready?
A tie upholds the ruling of the chair, so you need a majority to overrule the decision.
Okay, Bogus.
No.
Booth?
No. I am just totally.
Okay.
Let's frame this.
Okay, I made a decision that she can make an amendment that only considers P4 and is not dividing the question. I allowed an amendment. Her amendment.
Then you would be
So I allowed it. It was appealed. If you vote yes, then you are
Agreeing with your ruling.
overturning. Okay, so it's a vote on an appeal. If you vote yes, you are saying that the appeal stands.
No.
Meaning that your, okay.
If we
you vote
appeal the
yes,
decision of the chair,
your ruling is overruled.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The appeal is, the appeal,
a no means we don't agree with the decision of the chair.
no, that's not. It's the opposite. Yes.
Yes, so I have clarification if you look on line 28, and I think this reads what is meant to say. So right now, what's on the table is a motion to appeal the decision of the chair that the amendment only considers P4, and yes would overturn the chair's decision. Is that correct?
Okay.
No
So if you vote
means
yes,
don't
you're
agree
overturning
with
the
the decision
decision.
of the chair.
Yeah.
Right, a yes means you vote to overturn.
Yes.
You agree with the
You
appeal to
support the
overturn.
appeal.
Are you ready?
No, it's actually different in Robert's.
So
A
a
no
no-
supports the chair.
No supports the chair.
No supports the chair.
I will add that to the document.
Right, exactly.
All right.
Okay,
Here-
I understand now. Thank
Okay,
you.
so we're going to start again at the bottom. Because Christine is still looking. Wood, are you ready?
A no supports the chair.
Yes.
Either way, we're making the next motion is going to be the same.
Are you voting no? Moss?
I vote no.
Straight?
No.
Okay, I don't know how he's following this,
I
but
know.
real?
No.
No.
Okay, got you. Norton? No. Sorry. Lear?
No supports the chair.
Hymus?
No.
Carrie?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, fair enough. Hart?
No.
Green?
Yes.
Earl is a no. Davis?
No.
Klein?
Yes.
Booth?
No.
And Bogus?
Yes. What does it need
So
for?
there were three, then yours sustains. So we sustain.
So the motion on the floor is that we move to approve P4 as submitted by the Standards and Assessment Committee. That is, we don't need another second, I would assume. We can go to straight to voting.
Okay. Moss?
Sorry. This is to approve P4, correct? I'm a yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Real?
Yes.
Norton?
Yes.
Lear?
Yes.
Carrie?
Abstain.
Okay. Hymus?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Green?
No.
Earl? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Klein?
No.
Booth?
Yes.
And Bogus?
No.
Okay. One abstention and 3 no's on that. Is that what you got?
That carried with 11 in favor. Next amendment would be.
Ma'am, I have a motion.
Yeah, I mean, next motion. Jenny, you're not motioning.
No.
Okay, yes, you're next.
Okay, I had emailed a motion to you all earlier, and I would just move that we take this opportunity to send the EL standards back to the S&A committee to begin again at step 10, 2, add specific strands on the ELA conventions and literary elements and techniques to address industry and constituent concerns regarding artificial intelligence, and to ultimately hear, debate, and vote on outstanding amendments in a special session on or before April 20th, and to direct staff to send the board a, quote, "full final draft from the Standards and Assessments Committee no later than April 23 of
Hold on.
2023.
Okay. Deputy Norman, do you have that motion?
Did you send it to me?
I do believe I did, yes.
Okay, let me double check really quick. I'll find it.
It would have been about 4 hours ago.
Is there a second to that motion, or do we need to see that before?
I'll second it.
You're going to second it? Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion while she's looking for it?
I have it.
Oh, you've got it?
Line 30.
Okay, the motion is to send the ELA standards back to the S&A committee at step 10 to add specific strands to ELA conventions and literary elements and techniques to address industry and constituent concerns regarding artificial intelligence, AI, hear, debate, and vote on outstanding amendments in a special session on or before April 20th. Please scroll down. And, please scroll down. Deputy Norman, can you scroll down? And to direct staff to send the board a full and final draft no later than April 23rd, 2023. It has been seconded. Is there any discussion to the motion?
I would like to speak.
You'd
to the
like to speak to your motion?
Yes, please. I would just repeat the idea or the fact that the impacts of these standards are far-reaching and long-standing. And I've had more conversations about them than I care to explore here, from teachers to LEA heads to concerned parents. And the consensus is just simply that the work here is not done. And in addition, you know, I am the only board member in the unique position to hold both an elementary and a secondary ELA endorsement. I have a 712 speech communications endorsement. I have a master's degree in English language learning. And I think that continuing the refining process to attain the best outcome is worth the delay from the perspective of so many educators and others who will be tasked with implementing these standards in the foreseeable future. Among thousands of students, I have reviewed the feedback across the aisle of peers in this field. And I too have motions and amendments to offer today on behalf of teachers in the field. And with that, I think that we need to genuinely consider this. I can speak to the step 10 in my second opportunity. I just believe that sending these standards back to S&A will allow the committee to do the work that it should have done to begin with. Thank you.
Member Klein, you want to speak to that motion? Okay.
I do.
Member Earl, you want to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I have a question from staff. This is specifically around the conventions and grammar, the ELA conventions. My concern, because I asked this question too, can you tell me how the specific grammar and conventions, how you see this rolling out in such a way that at certain grades, people will know what is to be there and why maybe that's missing or what we can do? So, if you don't mind.
Chair, may I?
Staff? Yes.
Thank you. As far as the convention, so they were in there in the original draft. After the 90 days of public comment, it was overwhelming to remove them because it was confusing. And so the writing committee did that in listening to the feedback. And the request was then in that feedback to put it in the core guides where it would be less cumbersome. And so the committee planned to do that moving forward.
Okay, and I have another question related to that. And it's my understanding that different curriculums introduce things at different levels. That's what, at least I heard in committee. And there was some reasons for not putting it at specific areas. I'm just saying that's what I heard. But for me, I'm listening to you saying you're putting in the core guides, or someone's putting it there. Is that going to be like kindergarten through first, or, I mean, how will that be broken down so that it's still relevant to curriculum, but it doesn't miss the mark when it comes to conventions and grammar.
Yes, yes. So for clarity, the core guides are broken out by grade level. So there would be a list, so to speak, of what would be required in the conventions piece for all of those different grades.
And I have just one more broad comment when this comes to AI. I think we need a broader policy or discussion around this. I don't think just, and I thought about this because I talked with Board Member Bogus last night, but I do think we need a broader policy that just isn't implemented in ELA because I think it extends beyond that into other areas too. So I do think that's a consideration. I don't know that we have to have specific language here on that, but I do think it's going to become more relevant as we move forward. So I don't see a need for specific language here as much as an overall policy or way of addressing that. So that's just my comments there.
Okay. Any further, Member Lear?
I've resisted the back and forth of my group of teachers is bigger than your group of teachers, but I have also received many, many emails, very articulate emails in some cases, summary emails in other cases. I've talked to teachers that live around me and that are neighbors, and I've also talked to other teachers who are in my community. And the teachers that I've heard from and talked to overwhelmingly support these standards as written. They are anxious to be understanding them and working on them and moving forward. And they can't understand how little teeny issues that seem to them small in terms of what their curriculum is and what their work is are holding up the work of understanding and putting in place new standards. So based on the constituents and teachers I've talked to, we need to move this forward.
Thank you. Member Davis?
My question really was going to go to the AI, but so I would say I agree with what Member Earl said about a more general approach to AI, and I think it's something that we need to at least discuss and start looking at across the board. I do think conventions are important. I'm okay if they're addressed in the core guide, but I think they do need to be addressed.
Thank you. Member Bogus?
No, I think, I could be wrong. I'm happy to speak, but if Member Klein is first, I'm happy to wait.
Sure, no.
On this, it says you clicked in first.
Okay, so my thought would be is, I think it is important to acknowledge, core guide aside, that if it's not in the standards, the likelihood of it being assessed is almost zero. And there are teachers who, regardless of whether or not we agree with their approach, they teach to the standards. So if the conventions are not in the standards, they won't get taught. That is just how certain teachers approach things, and it's a reality. And to Member Lear's point, I met with many people who thought that the standards were, the verbiage was on their way, but far from finished. So not everybody I spoke with, there were some teachers that I honestly, I know it's offensive in this room, but they wondered where the experts were. And so that whole idea means that your teacher community is divided on these issues. I had many people who said they didn't even know they were up for public comment. And our district does a very good job sending out distribution emails, and that's not something that we got. I just think that in the transition of all of the things that are happening in the turn of the board, if you will, that some things got missed, and I would like to see us take an eagle eye view as opposed to coming down in like mice and making a mess of things. The overwhelming concern, even among the people who, and the educators who like these, is that they are not finished, and that passing them out today would be a great disservice to the students in Utah.
Okay, Member Klein?
I was just going to repeat
okay.
what she said as far as the standards are what we set for, that dictate the assessments. So if the conventions aren't in there, then there's no reason for a teacher to cover those in her teaching. So they really need to be in there, not just in a core guide. I mean, that is what makes English language arts English language arts. And it wouldn't be too difficult as far as you just make a separate strand, keep all of the conventions in a single strand throughout instead of trying to embed it where you've already created language.
Okay, Member Green?
Yeah, so just two things that I wanted to touch on. First is just the AI. I know that in our local district, we actually had a problem with plagiarism that just surfaced to the point where we actually got a formal letter sent out for parents encouraging kind of the discussion with our students about plagiarism and then utilizing, the AI things. And it got so bad in one.
Can you speak up? I know you're right next
Oh,
to me, but I
yes.
can't hear you.
Sorry, I'll talk louder. Anyway, so we even have a couple teachers, a history teacher specifically, that is now requiring students to handwrite their essays that they're required to do, to just, instead of the typing program that they used to do. So I think it's relevant to our discussion that we had in our committee as well, about the word produce, and we touched on that as well. So outside of just what we're seeing, like this happened last week. So it's very, very new, and I think we're just starting to realize how that will begin to affect the classrooms and how students engage with their interaction here. And then the second thing is, I would feel so much more comfortable, putting this forward, and we're saying that that is going to be a document that's developed with the conventions. I have a book, and I've kind of showed this to a few people, but it's a 4th grade book about, and it's English language arts. And they have, let me just bring up this last part. And this is just maybe for people that are watching, if they don't understand maybe where the argument is about what we're putting forward. In this book, for 4th grade alone, they work through sentences, nouns, verbs, adjective, articles, pronouns, adverbs, prepositions, punctuation, and punctuation. I'm going to keep going. It's annoying. Periods, colons, commas, apostrophes, hyphens, quotation marks, underlining, capitalization, abbreviations, verbs, adverbs, pronouns, double negatives, troublesome words, and so forth and so on. And so I think that those are the things that, if I'm hearing it correctly, is what we want to make sure is very much highlighted. And it seems that those would be items that could be assessed and quantified. But the other part of this is, I feel like we have a really good base for the part 2, where they introduce, for example, adverbs, and then right after that they have writing stories. And so they apply the learning of adverbs into the writing of stories, and they've got that laid out. So I guess I was maybe looking, and you can clarify that, how I get hung up on conventions. So are those going to be assessed? Will they be a more formal part of our document? Would
Chair, can I address that?
Please.
As best I can.
Sure.
Yeah, so when it comes to developing statewide assessments, I'm going to delineate what a classroom teacher might assess, their own creation of assessments that they might do versus a statewide assessment. The statewide assessments that we administer to grades 3 through 10 are aligned with the standards that are adopted by the board. So you're correct. If they're not in the standards, if there's something that you want assessed that's not in the standards, that creates a challenge for your staff as we develop the assessments.
Thank you. Member Reel?
Yes, I have a few notes. One is on the motion, and that is that I've had the pleasure of working with ELA staff and educators from the writing committee. One educator on the writing committee was the former chair of the Standards and Assessment State Board of Education Committee. So the expertise is there. And to me, there is a process in place that is purposeful, provides opportunity for public input, provides opportunity for educator input, provides opportunity for experts to
No, you're good.
gather and create these standards. I do not believe it is the role of the board to write these standards. That is not our job, and I truly believe that. It is set up in a process in a way that works. And I don't want to argue. I want to get through this. I want to take this out. I want ELA to leave and move on today in our board. It is completely unproductive and ineffective to take it back to committee. And honestly, it's insulting to the people that have worked so hard to get it to this part because although a lot of us have experience in different things, none of us are going every day except for Member Norton and teaching ELA. And so for me, I hope that we can just get through these amendments, continue the work, and that we remember for future that this is not our job to write standards. There is a process in place with expertise and public comment. It is transparent and it is open. And in the future, if we have amendments that want to rewrite, there's an opportunity for us to do that. This is not the time and that's not our role. So call the question on Member Bogus's motion.
Oh, okay, we have a call to question. I'm looking around for a second. Second. Let's vote on call to question.
Okay. Bogus?
No.
Booth? Klein? No. Davis?
Yes.
Earl? Yes. Green?
No.
Hart?
Yes.
Hymus?
Yes.
Lear?
Yes.
Norton?
Yes.
Rill?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Moss?
Yes.
Sorry, Carrie.
I'll say, you forgot. Yeah, yes.
Sorry, there's a little squiggle. Yes. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, so that does.
The motion carries with 11 votes. We are now moving to the motion, which is in green. Send the ELA standards back to the Standards and Assessment Committee, and at step 10, to add specific standards on ELA conventions and literary elements and techniques to address industry and constituent concerns regarding artificial intelligence, AI. Hear, debate, and vote on outstanding amendments in a special session on or before April 20th, and to direct staff to send the board a full final draft no later than April 23rd, 2023. Bifocals don't work.
Ready?
Sideways. We're ready to vote.
Norton? No. Lear?
No.
Carrie?
No.
Hymus?
No.
Hart?
No.
Green? Yes. Earl is no. Davis?
No.
Klein? Yes. Booth?
No.
Bogus?
Yes.
Moss?
No.
Wood?
No.
Straight?
No, I support the chair.
Rill?
No.
Okay, there were 3 yeses on that, so it doesn't pass.
It does, the motion does not pass.
Chair, I have a motion.
Hold on.